Tonight's meeting is about COVID-19 and the effects it's going to have on people and business. It becomes a ripple effect, and this is going to go on for years. And we've got some really good speakers tonight. Bill Lang is a coach. He's very much involved in helping small business. He's an advisor, and he has a real passion for small business. And also he's going to talk about buying local. Our next speaker is Alison Crawford. Alison has been an accountant for 28 years. She's been in her own business for 21 years. She's a public practicing accountant under the IPA. Our next speaker is Rhonda Abotomy. I met Rhonda when I was doing the Black Saturday fires, particularly on the trauma side. In fact, Rhonda's done a fair few sessions on dealing with trauma, and I thought I'd invite her along tonight because the outcome of this particular event is going to create a lot of trauma for people, and that should come out in the talks tonight. Our next panel person is Bill Redfern. I invited Bill back even though he gave his talk last week. He specialises in just getting people back on the road to recovery financially. I'd like to hand over to Bill Lang now. Bill, could you kick off for a few minutes and just give us a bit of an overview on what's happening out there in the business world at the moment?
Yeah, thanks very much, Barry, and thank you, Luke, and thanks very much to the club for the invitation to join you tonight. First of all, I'd like to tell you a bit about Small Business Australia. So we're an organisation that's been designed by a number of small business owners to provide, do research and then provide advocacy and a very direct voice to all three levels of government about the sorts of things that will improve the small business sector. Because we fundamentally believe that small business owners, like all of you here, and many of you have been in small business, are still in it, you are the hearts and souls of local communities. It's people like you that join organisations like Rotary and other local organisations that are providing the part-time work for the school kids for work experience, the uni students, all the way through to the prizes for the trivia night at the school, or the raffle prizes for the local footy club and cricket club. So rather than just talking about the economics of small business and how important it is as the engine room of the economy, we came to the conclusion that many politicians were really taking the small business sector for granted and really underplaying the significant role they play as leaders in their local community. So I'm delighted to be able to spend tonight with you, and I want to share with you what we're hearing. We're talking with every week 200 small business owners around the country to get a sense of how they're dealing with COVID. And the impact it's having on their business, how they're feeling, what they're thinking about doing. We've been doing that now for 13 weeks. And as a result of that, we've developed a number of policy positions that we are aggressively advocating, particularly with the federal government and the state government. And we're about to start with local government. And we have a couple of initiatives where we've brought together some major Australian corporations in what we call the Keep Well Buy Local movement, which in the next 2 weeks will be starting up around the country to work on a couple of key things that will help not only the citizens, but also the small businesses have a greater chance of surviving. So the first of the three themes I want to quickly talk about is around a conclusion that we reached quite a while ago, and that is that hope is not a strategy if you're running a business. And that we have to adopt a mindset and a frame of reference that we will need to live and do business with this virus. Now, I believe the impact that it's going to have for many, many years to come will be like the impact that the Great Depression had on my great-grandparents and their level of frugality and what it was like to have to actually just survive through that period. Now, the governments are more enlightened than what they were back in those days, but the reality is that this is going to last for a long time in terms of the economic impact, but the psychological impact that it will have on many people and the way they think about what's important in their lives, how they live their lives, how they earn their money and how they spend their money will be critical. So when it comes to, a lot of people have been saying, well, when we get back to normal, our theme to all of our members and to everyone we're dealing with in the media and in the political spheres is we really won't be going back to normal. There'll be no going back to the old normal. There may be a new normal, but that may be a long way off. In fact, we're more likely to have to deal with a new. And it all changed again today with respect to numbers announced and changes being made in a number of other local government areas, etc. And again, the citizens are already confused and trying to actually understand, well, what are the rules and what do rules apply to me, etc., etc. So with respect to the new, what we have been talking to many small business owners about is they must do everything they can to have the business survive. So survival of the business is objective number one. Now, there are about 20% of the 2.2 million small businesses in the country that are actually have got revenues going up, because they're in areas where demand for their products and services has gone up. Anything to do with digital business, demand has gone up. Anything to do with logistics and delivery related things, demand has gone up. And there's certainly been in the short term, peak demand for things like toilet paper. There's peak demand now for sanitizer, as there is for masks at the moment in Victoria. But sort of focus number one is survival, and that they won't be going back to the old normal. The second one is the importance of digital. Every business must now get involved with the digital side of business. A lot of businesses that we used to go to face to face, I'd have my local, I'm based in Carlton, I'd have my local cafes I'd go to in Lygon Street, and I'd rock up and they say, "G'day Bill, how you going? Long macchiato." Yep, they'd know I'd pay by my card, and it all happened. They knew my name was Bill, but they've had no ability to actually contact me as a customer since they closed down. Only if I happened to walk past to see if they're open, would I potentially know what was going on with that business. So digital's now critical, as is the upskilling of many business owners, particularly business owners that are north of 40 years old and have been able to stay in business and motor along okay and have the business serve their personal goals and the lifestyle that they've wanted. Now they must learn more about digital, and it's great seeing all of you guys in action. I've been involved with digital business now for more than 20 years. I started Australia's first free internet company nearly 20 years ago now, and then built a company in Silicon Valley. But now you're all on this thing called Zoom, whereas in December, some of you thought it was something you did on your mobile phone or on your digital camera or on your binoculars to get a better view of watching those ships come down past Frankston or through the heads. So we've already adopted something like Zoom. Old dogs can learn new tricks in this digital area, and it's something that all business owners that haven't embraced it to date are going to have to do and are very capable of doing. So that's the first thing. Our underlying assumption is, living and doing business with the virus. We say, look, hope is not a strategy. There may not be a vaccine. Even if there is, we may not get it in Australia for a long, long time. There's still no vaccine for HIV/AIDS. There are treatments available to help you live with HIV, but there's still no vaccine for it. The second thing then is, people keep asking us at Small Business Australia, well, what can we do? How can we help small business? How can we help them survive? Because we understand that they are the heart and soul of our local communities. And so with organisations like National Australia Bank, News Corporation, Snap Printing, Australia Post, Deloitte, the international accounting firm, Xero, the New Zealand founded but online accounting firm for small businesses. In 2 weeks' time, we're launching a movement which is called Keep Well, Buy Local. Any business person will be able to come over, become a free member of Small Business Australia, and access a whole set of resources of simple but quality educational resources and signage that can be used to do two things. One is we have to keep well. Staying safe is not enough. We've already got the mainstream media with a lot of people scared out of their brains with respect to the virus. And unquestionably, for certain elements of the population, it is very, very scary because if they were to get it, it has a significant impact on the likelihood of them living. But staying safe is not enough. We need to be keeping well. And with all business owners, we've been encouraging to keep their own physical, mental and emotional health well, because the ability of their business to survive and their livelihoods to stay in place is fundamentally a function of their personal health. But we also need our citizens and our customers to be doing those basic things. No amount of hectoring from politicians telling us what to do or government ads is going to necessarily get a proportion of people to do it. But businesses are already doing a lot of work with their employees, with their customers, encouraging their 2, now 3 key behaviours. And when I talk about sort of simple communication, I'll just sort of show you a bit of an example here. We sort of say, at the most simplest level, 2 hands, keep them clean. 2 arms, that's the distance, 2 arms apart that we need to be. And then the third element to help the small businesses to survive is shopping local. And that's whether you buy online from the business, because increasingly they're getting websites you can buy online. Picking up the telephone, particularly for younger people, and talking in the telephone and actually seeing, is that local business open? Can they deliver? Or if you're out and about, actually popping into those businesses, keeping your hands clean, keeping a couple of arms distance apart, and donning a mask now here in Victoria. So the keep well and buy local message is all about helping business owners get themselves geared up. And there's another whole set of additional resources, videos they can watch We've got a whole range of cost-saving offers that we're sourcing from electricity companies, companies that have got digital services to help them get more involved with the whole digital side of business, to give them every chance of saving the business. The third area then that I want to talk briefly about is, if we keep the business alive, that's going to be fantastic. But the reality is many businesses are going to have to close. But the unfortunate thing at the moment is that we have a bankruptcy and insolvency legal system that most small business people don't understand. Many people are afraid of it. And in many cases, if your business is getting put out of business because of the strategy of the government to deal with the health emergency, why should you be lumbered with the impacts that come if you end up being bankrupt or insolvent under the law? So we are currently lobbying very hard. I've spoken with 3 federal ministers in the last 24 hours about something called a COVID business closure. And the COVID business closure would enable a business owner to very quickly sort out, either directly with the key creditors of the business or with the help of a public servant in a very short period of time, how to close that business up and then be able to restart the business. Now, very sadly, I'll use the word mental health, but the reality is in Australia last year, 62,000 people failed with their suicide attempts and 3,000 people succeeded last year in Australia. I've had 4 successful small business owner suicides in Melbourne reported to me in the last 7 days, including one of the restaurants in Lygon Street that I've gone to for many years. 1 week into the second lockdown, he just couldn't face it. He couldn't deal with it. We've also got a number of conversations now happening with the major life insurance companies, because there are certainly services available. And I encourage you to talk to any business owner you know. If you're a business owner there now and you've had this conversation going on in your head about the uncertainty, whether you can make it, if you're ever starting to think that the people that love you are going to be better off without you, that's not the rational answer. So there's the need to speak with the professionals, and we're very hopeful that we will see some changes that will enable you to close the business in a very considered way without the implications of technically being a bankrupt and then being able to get going again or do some other things. There is nothing to be ashamed of if you have to close your business through no fault of your own, but as a result to the strategies employed to deal with the COVID health crisis. So I can't encourage any of you that are in business now to be talking with your friends and other colleagues in business. Those of you that know people in business, you've got to dig below the first answer and get a sense of what's going on and look for some of the telltale signs. I'm really looking forward to hearing what some of the other members of the panel have got to say, because they've got a lot of experience in these areas. But nothing is worth checking out on your family and friends on a permanent basis. It's nothing to be ashamed of if your business is going to have to close as a result of what's taken place. So that's all I really wanted to say in terms of opening up, Barry. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to be invited. I'm spending a lot of time with groups like yours, with business owners and business associations, talking about these things. We'll be doing a lot more, with the media about it, because we have to talk about it. And these things have happened for many years, particularly in the farming community with major droughts. I know, Barry, you've got your own experiences with respect to the impact of bushfires and things. Now it's a nationwide related issue that's landing squarely, in the laps of many, many tens of thousands of small business owners. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to contributing tonight.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Bill. I'd like to hand over to Alison. Alison, you're really at the front line of this stuff with businesses. Can you tell me your take on what's happening?
Certainly, Barry. I'm certainly at the front line. We have probably 500 business owners. I would say that 30 or 40% of them as a minimum would be on JobKeeper. When we hit the first lockdown, everybody through our office was taught, and we encouraged them to revamp, strategize, get new websites, organize their stuff, and the motivation in our clients was brilliant. It was a stopgap measure. They, decided that they would take a pause and just basically come out of this stronger. We looked at some online things for some clients, and all seemed to be rosy. certainly trusted what we said. They trusted in their own ability to keep coming forward. They really did hit the ground running in getting ready for the resurgence of their businesses. To a point that did occur, we saw things start to change when the state government here in Victoria decided they weren't going to release us from stage 2. And we started to see a darkening, I suppose, of our clients' emotions. And when we went back into stage 3, we started having clients that wouldn't return our calls. And not that we're billing them. We would probably have $75,000 to $100,000 worth of billing time sitting in our resources that we will never bill to a client. We've done all of their job keepers, all of their state government grants, their cash flows, and we're giving them the money without taking funds. And we still can't, get them to respond. I've made visits to them to make sure that they're okay. We have business owners, especially gymnasiums, cafes and things like that, trembling at the thought process of losing houses, families. They are going to lose their businesses. That's a given. But it is hard, and so many businesses are falling through the cracks. They may have a gymnasium and a milk bar under the same company, and because one of the companies, or a liquor shop, and because one side of the company is doing better, but on a very fine margin, the other part of the company can't get JobKeeper, the other part of the company, or it's a family trust and they're not paying wages and there's nothing they can do. So this is getting really tough for some of the businesses out there. And with the gaining numbers, we're hearing from clients today when they start making their lodgements for their next JobKeeper month, to say that they don't know that they're actually going to come out of this. They don't know that stage 3 will end. And they just don't have the ability to keep moving now. This is going to be a very big problem. We've had one client commit suicide, a cafe in Mornington. We've heard from another cafe, which is ours, that the company beside them has already committed suicide in Mornington as well. So we're a small firm. We've probably got, 12 to 1,500 clients, and to know one of ours has committed suicide and a second one of one that we know has committed suicide, they're damning facts. I don't know anyone that's got COVID, let alone died from COVID, but I can tell you that I know people who've died from this. So, it's a tough thing. We're just trying to keep our clients on the up, really, on the upside of the daisies at this point.
Alison, how is the taxation department treating you?
Pretty poorly, actually. In the open media, they talk about being reasonable and flexible and understanding when people get it wrong, and close enough's okay. And then every morning for the last 3 months, we've received threats that tax agents will be held accountable, that if they dodge the figures, they'll come after us. It's pretty tough. We've had a lot of accountants decide they're not going to touch it. They're not going to help. And I understand why. We put ourselves at risk as soon as we try and help a client, and we're given no advice. And I'll turn up at 6 in the morning and read what we might have to do for the day, and my poor staff get in at 9, and what they thought they were doing is not what they're doing. And we've just got to deal with a new matter, a new lodgement, a new report, to try and get the clients up and moving. And yeah, there's no support.
So what's this doing to you personally?
Well, the 16-hour, 18-hour days is getting a bit tough. I haven't been to Rotary in a long time. Clients are crying at counters. I've had 2 staff had to stay home to look after their own children. I can't get staff. I've actually put a new staff member on just to cope with the COVID. They won't bill it, so it's more money out of my pocket. We're on JobKeeper. We hit April and took 10%. Our turnover was our income was 10% of what it should have been for that month. you know, we're recovering. We're helping our clients through. It's going to be tough. The next phase of JobKeeper, to say that you have to have been down 30% for the April to June quarter and then the July to September quarter, no questions asked, no seasonal fluctuation abilities, is going to knock so many of our clients off who are desperately struggling. And there's going to be a lot of business failures, especially in Victoria, on the back of this.
Thank you, Alison. Rhonda, the question I'd have is how can you help, or some of your knowledge help?
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to join in today. It's such an important topic. And I just want to extend my care and compassion to everybody there and who has spoken this evening, because the trauma is so extensive and so real from events like this. What I have to offer, as meagre as it is I would call myself an experiential expert in trauma rather than a professional expert. To cut to the chase, I've had a lot of health issues, like life-threatening health issues that have put me in hospital for 17 operations over 14 years, and I'm very lucky to be here and grateful. And it teaches you a lot. I also lost 3 of my family members in the Black Saturday bushfires, and they were killed by the bushfire arsonist. I learnt very quickly in the exhaustion of trauma, and that's what it is, incredibly exhausting, that I had 2 choices, and I could you only get to spend your energy once, was my biggest lesson, and I decided to spend it getting active and making a positive difference. Otherwise I would have been lost getting angry and sad. And I was all of those things, and I want to put right up front, what I have to share is about finding the pockets of light within the darkness, the hope within the hell. And this is bloody hell, what we're all going through. I was also invited to work at the University of Melbourne with a research team for almost over a period of 4 years, looking at post-traumatic growth. And I'll explain what that is in a moment, but that's probably the tool that I would like to add this evening. I see one of our things that we can do is try and top up people's toolkits. Look, I'm not stating much here that you probably don't all know, but I have had the privilege of drawing on not only my own trauma experiences, which many people have, but also the hundreds of people that I ended up involved with through Black Saturday, not only through the research, but I was a Royal Commission witness twice, and also for 4 years on the Victorian Government's Bushfire Bereaved Advisory Group. And it's a privilege to draw on the experience of all those people to share some of the learnings. Now, some of the stress impacts we know, and you've spoken to them about, the impact of traumatic events and shocks to our life on our mental and physical health is enormous. The event itself and those health impacts often generate dreadful financial and life-changing impacts. Substance abuse is often rife in the trauma setting. Breakdowns of relationships, and I think it's important that we acknowledge that as our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with our nearest and dearest, but also our work colleagues and community. And that stress impact on relationships is so devastatingly impactful on our whole lives. And so many people that I was involved and engaged with spoke to the feeling trapped, to being stuck and frozen. Trauma impacts our brains so much, and the confusion, the worry, the impact on memory and our ability to function. And I think it's just as a starting point, it's so critical that we acknowledge these impacts. Post-traumatic growth, or that term, was a light bulb moment for me, and I only heard it 4 years into my bushfire journey. I knew all about post-traumatic stress and the decline and the health impacts, but no one had ever mentioned the words post-traumatic growth. And I learnt that it's actually a formally recognised trauma reaction that people have. And I wish somebody had told me that PTG is a thing, because I needed to hear those words to understand that part of my trauma response. And in it speaks to things like you're a different sense of yourself, that you learn things about yourself, your ability to relate to other people changes. Often out of the horribleness, people develop a new and stronger appreciation for life. They explore new possibilities, and for some people it translates to spiritual growth. The work I was involved in at Melbourne University was literally interviewing a whole range of bushfire affected people and asking them about, giving them an opportunity to share what did their post-traumatic growth look like in amongst their decline. So I just want to share a few of these to give you a taste of what very severely trauma impacted people, how they conceptualized what their growth was like. This person spoke about feeling incredibly uncomfortable for 2 years, but 5 years down the track, when we invited people to give their contribution, he said that was really a growth experience for him, to learn about himself, understand his limits, and he could draw out that positive from within the negatives. This lady is part of a couple who sadly their son died in the Black Saturday bushfires, and it's quite incredible, and I hope it brings a sense of hope and heart to people to hear that even people with the greatest of losses, the loss of life, were able to still find those shards of light and hope and growth. Next slide, thanks Barry. One of the interesting things that came out from doing the research was that many people found themselves doing things and involved in projects that they had never done before. There was a blacksmith's project where a metal tree was created, and thousands of people ended up involved in this. But this particular person, a fireman, he truly said that project saved my life. It gave him a reason and something to be involved in that provided a point of connection around the fires, and it truly saved his life. And if he hadn't had that and the community connection it provided, it would have been very difficult for him. This person was, and that's a small embroidery of a person's name, but her words are the thing that are most powerful. She spoke to that trauma impact of her loss of identity and her disconnect from herself and her struggle to manage. And through this group, just a group in their community gathering together, and it started off them finding some wool amongst the relief materials. They were sorting out donated items, and they ended up sewing and learning things, but she embroidered her name, and it was only then that she actually could reconnect with herself. So doing that project really mattered to her. Nearly everybody who engaged in the research offered the information and the advice that they learned and developed skills that they had no idea that they had before. So their trauma inspired or induced skills. And whilst everyone everyone said, I would never wish that had happened to me, but I am grateful for the things that I learned and the new skills that I acquired. And I think it's really critical that we top up people's toolkits with some knowledge that there is this thing called post-traumatic growth. One of the challenges, I think, particularly around COVID, is that my experience through this process was that one of the things that helped facilitate and helped people deal with their trauma was having points of connection to others and into their communities or into projects and activities. And it was that in-person connection that really mattered. The challenge with COVID, of course, is that we no longer can have that in-person connection. So I think the challenge is creating and facilitating safe ways to help people, COVID-safe ways to help people connect and engage in projects to recognise the growth within their darkness and within their trauma would be a really valuable thing to add to the toolbox.
That was a good sum up. I mean, trauma is trauma. It doesn't matter whether it's a road accident, whether it's a bushfire, or whether it's this disaster. There'll be a lot of trauma come out of this particular disaster, and it's the ripple effect. We're seeing the event at the moment, but the ripple effect is going to go on, as Bill Lang stated, for many, many years. And we have to think about that. Now, Bill Redfern, could you just sum up your ways of helping people and where you think things are happening in your area?
Thanks, Barry. And thanks for the opportunity of joining the panel. Many of you who were attending last week heard me speak about financial counselling, what financial counsellors do, where it's funded and so forth. So I'm not going to go through all that. The area we work on is basically helping people, and it's focused on individuals. Typically, they're people on low incomes or no incomes who are experiencing financial difficulty due to unmanageable debts. Could be mortgages, credit cards, personal loans, rental arrears, unpaid fines, these sorts of things. Very often they are also not just dealing with debt, but they are dealing with poor health, physical or mental health. They're dealing with drug or alcohol addictions, sometimes gambling addictions. Very commonly, family violence is a reason for them seeking financial counselling, because they are struggling or they find themselves just having exited a bad relationship and trying to make a fresh start and don't know what to do. So we work with people like that. Now, in the COVID context, we've gone through a surprising experience. We had a situation where we've had waiting lists of people trying to see financial counsellors. And a year ago, a client who would present seeking financial counselling could have to wait 2 months before they could start to have a counsellor work with them on a one-on-one basis and then go forward. With the event of coronavirus supplements for people on Centrelink payments, and banks, both mortgages, credit cards, giving them short-term relief from having to make payments, our client base, and I'm just trying to sort of speak in a typical context, our client base thought it was Christmas. They were no longer getting debt collectors and banks, etc., ring them up and hassle them over late payments. They had extra income that they were not used to. And so they went from all the usual sort of problems that people have who are not coping with their finances to suddenly thinking they didn't have a problem. Consequently, our waiting list right now have gone down from, say, 8 weeks of 12 months ago to about 2 weeks, as we've been able to catch up, essentially. However, that's the reaction to all the extra benefits. As the banks and the debt collectors and the finance companies decide that they have given people as much relief for as long as they're prepared to do it, and they start reactivating demanding payments, and as the income supplements for people on Centrelink benefits start to dry up, or people receiving JobKeeper start to dry up, the situation is going to change dramatically. So not only will we have a return to what we had, I think we're going to have, as our earlier speakers have indicated, a hugely increased need for this sort of support. Now, we focus on individuals. We don't provide services to businesses. We do for self-employed, but as in terms of their individual circumstance. So in that context, we're trying to assist people work out what debts they should be focusing on, how to respond to their debts, what are their options, whether bankruptcy is a viable option for them, depending on their circumstances. So that's what we do, and we anticipate a huge increase. Barry, the slide that I would like you to put up is the one with the national debt, national health tax. Thank you, you've got it there in front of me, sorry. So as I mentioned to people last week, the best way of accessing a financial counselling service is through the National Debt Helpline. They've got a 1-800 number, and you ring, you speak to a qualified, experienced financial counsellor who attempts to provide initial advice as best they can, and where they conclude that the individual seeking help will need ongoing or more personalised service, they would refer them through to an agency such as the agency I work for, to get an individual financial counsellor to take them up as a case and work with them. I'll stop there, Barry, in the interest of time. Thank you.
You know, one of the big issues we've got with COVID-19, particularly in Victoria, is the impact on aged care. And it appears that our government, both state and national, haven't learnt from the lessons of overseas. The UK's had 46,000 deaths from COVID in a population about double Australia, and a quarter of those, 10,000 of those, are from aged care. And, you know, I guess I get annoyed that we don't learn from the experiences of countries that are very similarly aligned to us. The UK and Australia operate very similarly, and you could see it was going to happen, and we didn't do anything, and now we're in a terrible situation that's going to have more economic destruction. I guess you guys are relaying experiences from traumatic events like bushfires and the like, and is there any opportunity to influence government any more than we can at the moment?
I might put that over to Bill. Bill, could you answer that, please?
There's always opportunities to be influencing government at every level, and it's through the direct contact that you have directly with, you know, your local members and things. So we've got near where some of you guys live, Greg Hunt just down the road there as the federal member for Flinders and the Minister for Health. And I'd encourage you to, you know, with whatever ideas you've got or practical things you want to see them do, to be directly ringing up his office, emailing him, you know, together as a Rotary group, if you have a session and come up with 2 or 3 things you'd like to see them do. You know, I'm sort of holding back myself now from some of the earlier criticism. If I take Taiwan as an example, it's, you know, 1 hour flight from mainland China, 25 million, same population as Australia, had, I think, 650 active cases. They've had 5 deaths. And they do some pretty simple things over there in Taiwan. It's a democracy, but they use the technology, and the technology enables them to track people. So you cannot refuse a test. As soon as you're tested positive, you're put in quarantine in your own home, but you are texted and checked on at least once or twice a day, with significant penalties if you break the rules. They use the tsunami loudspeaker system, PA system there, to let people know within a 1 kilometre radius of that location that there has been a positive case identified in the area. So everyone is, you know, that lives around that area or works in that area is told about it straight away. And everyone's been wearing masks. And you know, this was known several months ago in terms of strategy. So I share your frustration with respect to what appears to be an ongoing process of having to make things up as they go along, and now arguing with each other over things like aged care. Many things are predictable in terms of what's been taking place with respect to government responses. I was only speaking to a minister yesterday and the federal minister, and I said, look, you know, you're in the cabinet. You made a bunch of decisions last week in cabinet about guaranteeing debt for small businesses, changing JobKeeper. No longer are they calling it Job Seeker, they're calling it something else. But then you've been drip feeding them out to the media in the typical way that you do it. Someone will talk about something on ABC telly Sunday morning. They'll leak that, then it'll get announced Monday. Then they'll leak something on Monday, gets announced on Tuesday. And they just keep drip feeding this stuff out, as opposed to, you know, as I said to him, look, the pain of uncertainty is far greater than the certainty of pain. And once you've made the decision, communicate the whole lot in one go. And I, you know, gave him and a couple of his colleagues, like, look, you have people that live in the no-risk economy. You know, they're public servants getting paid well up in Canberra. The economy's booming in Canberra. All the cafes and things are open up there. You've got a lot of lobby groups that you effectively fund that are providing you with advice, and they haven't got anyone in there that's run a business, taken on the risk of, you know, starting something, hiring people, possibly in their lives, or if they did it once for a short period of time before becoming a bureaucrat. So, you know, sadly, we've got what we've got, but I can't encourage you enough to take what you want to see happen directly to those local members. We will have a database at Small Business Australia next week of every politician in the country, of every political party, federal and state, and every councillor. And we've got the next set of council elections are in Victoria in October. And from our perspective, it's like, you know, enough is enough. We need to be putting practical ideas that small business owners have generated for years in front of these people and find out where they stand and start to influence the votes, because ultimately it's all they pay attention to is, am I in power? Can I keep power?
Thanks very much, Bill. I'd like to call on Mark Humphries, our District Governor, to just reflect on what he's listened to tonight as far as the district's concerned.
Yeah, look, thank you for letting me be a part of this tonight, and thank you to the panelists. I mean, haven't we heard some really powerful words and stories there tonight? One of the things, we as Rotarians know, we're not first responders, but we are the people that really connect with our communities. We connect with our local shops. We connect with our local clubs and all those sorts of things. And they are the people that are really, really hurting. And it is our duty really to support these people in whatever way we can. Every one of us here tonight has some skills, and it's beholden upon us to share those skills and our life experiences with the people around us. Rotary, you guys are people of action. That's our motto. We are the people of action. And this year's international theme, Rotary opens opportunities. Just listen to what you've heard tonight. How many opportunities have we heard of where we can get involved and we can, in some small way, help and support our fellow members, our fellow community people? We have to do this. You go back 6 or 7 months ago, East Gippsland, they were in drought. They've had fires. They had the massive rainstorms and everything that was in there. And now they've been struck with COVID. Where we are, we have lots of things that affect us as well. And we've got COVID. Again, think of what's been going on over in the East Gippsland area. They've been doing it really, really tough. So I'd like to think, that as district, we have programs that we're wanting to roll out. We need clubs like you to help us engage more with communities and stuff. So I just urge and encourage every one of you to think about what opportunities we've heard tonight, how you can be engaged with our community members, and how you can send me the information, programs, something that you'd like to see, and how we as a district can then help support and roll that program out as well.
Can I just say to our speakers how genuinely touched I was by everything I've heard tonight. And I run a small business, Bill Lang, and I want to queue up to be involved in the Small Business Association. Just reinforces that as Mark Humphries alluded to, that there's something that we can do as a group, and if there is, then we should all be working towards that. And I absolutely endorse those comments, Mark. That's really important for all of us to take that on board and to think of ways that we can actually help the community in a different way from what we're used to. And that's a challenge for all of us, I think, that in these unpredictable times as we're finding, and the difficult times that it's creating for a lot of people, that we're in a really great position to actually help others, as we do in so many different ways. So certainly applaud that concept and that approach. And our part of the deal, I guess, Mark, is to look at what we need to do going forward and how we can actually get together as a group and provide some support. So thank you all. It's been a wonderful presentation, and really looking forward to what we can do as a community group to help out in the future.